Good afternoon and welcome to Being. Today we're going to be talking about the law of attraction. This law became a principle back in the 90s and it grew exponentially. Millions of people all over the world tapped into this law of attraction and began to try to practice it. And so what happened was that millions of people were trying diligently to always think positive thoughts and always have positive feelings, because this was a principle based on manifestation. So if I think positive thoughts, then I'm going to attract or manifest positive things. If I think so-called negative thoughts, then I'm going to attract so-called negative events. So the first thing we have to look at here is what is positive and what is negative. So duality. Let's talk a little bit about duality. Duality means there's a polarity. That means that there is one thing on one side of the polarity and another thing on the other side of the polarity, and those are opposites. And that's the way we generally think of positive and negative. And we might also put good and evil or good and badness right along with those. So positivity is goodness, negativity is badness. And that's generally how we equate those things. I'm not saying that everyone in the world does that. If you don't do that, don't worry about it. Take this video off. But if that's what the law of attraction consists of, what it's doing is promoting duality. What is the healthiest place between these two poles is somewhere in the middle. What Carl Jung would have called a syzygy, which means the union of both of those two opposites. And so what that can mean is that we all carry a mixed bag. Would I call that positive or goodness or negative and badness? No. Those words carry so much weight. They carry so much weight because we come from a world which from ancient times was trying to deal with uncertainty and difficulty and suffering by defining some things as bad and other things as good. Now, first, I want to clarify, I'm not saying that an automobile accident is good. I'm not saying that the death of a loved one is good. What I am saying is that label, good or bad, doesn't work. Those terms mean that we suffer more than we would if we weren't using those terms or that way of thinking. So suffering occurs because we live on planet Earth. It doesn't occur because we're thinking negative thoughts. It doesn't occur because we're not thinking enough positive thoughts. So as a therapist, what I have seen, which, created my whole line of thinking along this and actually helped me write a book about it, which you can go to on Amazon.com under my name. And it's called The Law of Attraction. And what it basically is saying is that there might be a law of attraction, but it's not what we thought it was. So let's talk about that a little bit. First, as we said, this idea of positive and negative just doesn't work. It puts us in the framework of I'm a good person and I deserve good things when I can think always positive thoughts. And I'm a bad person and I deserve bad things if I'm not always thinking positive thoughts. Now, it's not generally that clear, but subconsciously that's going on. And so it makes us have a real difficult time. So as I started to say, as a therapist, I've seen clients come into my office and say, I've been trying so hard not to think any negative thoughts. I've been trying so hard to just always be positive and think only positive thoughts. And when I have a so-called negative thought, I say, erase, erase. So the universe won't hear that. I'm trying so hard to erase that negative thought so the universe won't hear it and I won't attract something negative. If that's not a way to become obsessive compulsive, I don't know one. That way of thinking, first, we've been taught that we can manipulate the universe according to our thinking and our feeling. That's dangerous in and of itself because what it says is I have the power to get good things in my life. But the reason I'm not getting good things in my life is because I'm a bad person, or I'm thinking bad thoughts, or having bad feelings. So let's talk about what a bad feeling is, or a negative feeling is. So we tend to think of anger as a bad or negative feeling. Anger can actually be destructive. It can be violent. It can be dangerous. Absolutely. But that's its behavior, not its general essence. So, for example, anger, if we sit with it, if we can hold the tension between the feeling and the action, then what happens is we begin to sit with that and begin to listen to its message. Anger's message is, I need to take care of myself. Anger's message is, I am here, I am real, and I matter. So I am here means I'm present. You can't erase me. I am real means I'm a real person. I'm not an object. I'm not a thing. I'm a real person with real feelings, real thoughts, a real body, a real mind, a real soul, a real heart. I'm real. And I matter says, I matter to me first and foremost. And I'm going to take care of me by asserting my boundaries. Maybe I'll end up having a talk with somebody after I've sat with it a minute and figured out what it is that I really want and need to do. So anger is not a bad thing in and of itself, but there are so many people out there right now who are telling you don't ever be angry. And that is nothing but repression. If you are pushing away your anger into a dark hole in your psyche, what's going to happen is it's going to come out later. It's going to leak out because there's a permeable boundary between consciousness and unconsciousness. And so what that means is it can pass through that permeable boundary. My anger can leak out in passive aggressive ways. I can say sarcastic things that are meant to hurt you, but when you ask me about it, I'll just say, well, I was just joking. You're taking this all wrong. Come on. I was just joking. But the person didn't think you were joking. And the reason they didn't think we were joking was because you weren't really joking. You were trying to say something, trying to convey a message without really having to take responsibility for conveying that message. And there's several other ways to be passive aggressive. I won't go into all of those right now, but the idea is if I repress anger, it's going to leak out in some other ways. Fear is another one. Oh my goodness, fear has taken on such a terrible persona, So what that means is fear is very, very bad. And there's so many people out there teaching there's love and there's fear and there's nothing else. Another polarity. Love is positive, fear is negative. What if fear can sometimes help me protect myself? What if I'm walking down a dark alley? Shouldn't I be a little bit afraid? Or should I tell myself, oh, no, fear is wrong. I should not be feeling that. That's dangerous business. Now, I made that extreme to make my point, but fear can be a message from the soul, from our deepest essence, telling us to look out. You're working too hard. You've taken on too much. You're about to burn out. Be afraid. Yes, this fear is there, and we're trying to push it away because we shouldn't be feeling that. So, yes, that can be toxic. That can be toxic because we're being taught something that is spiritually abusive. Let me say that again. We're being taught something that is spiritually abusive when we're being taught to repress our own feelings and our own thoughts. So this idea that there's only love and there's only fear, no, that's not the truth. Fear can be loving, and loving can say, be afraid. So those two polarities don't work. There's a syzygy. There's a union of those two opposites in the middle where we go, okay, love and fear can go together. So those are just two examples. There's several others. But let me give you an example that really makes sense to me, and it's in my book. When I was a child, I was maybe passive aggressive. I'm not really sure what you would call this because I was, 12, 13 years old. And it was my job to take the trash can out, right, to the to the trash, the garbage. We had a big backyard, maybe 50 yards. It was big. And um, and what I would do is I would just not empty the trash can during the day. My mother would come home from work and she would say, "The trash can's not emptied. Go do it." But it was dark outside. Now we had a big, one of those big lights that shines everywhere, and you would think that that would make it safe and okay. The problem was that the garbage can was sitting out beyond a fence, and the fence had a bunch of honeysuckle and vines and all that over it. So you couldn't really see into the alley where the garbage can was. And I was really scared that there was always going to be a boogeyman back there, and he was going to take me and kidnap me and kill me and all kinds of terrible, awful, and no good things that were going to happen to me. And so, all the many times that I was supposed to empty the trash can and didn't, you would think that I would be afraid and go, I need to get up and get the trash can while it's still daylight. But nope, that didn't happen because I don't know. I was 12 years old. What can I say? So, yeah, I would go out in the dark and I would go get close to that fence and I would be terrified that that man was back there and he was going to get me. So, what I would finally do after I stood there for a while is I would run through the fence gate and I would throw the trash at the trash can. Most of it went in the trash can, and then run back. And as I was running back to my back porch, I had a long ponytail at the time, and I was so afraid that man was behind me and running after me, and he was going to catch me by my ponytail and take me away. Now, how I got all that into my imagination, I don't know. But here's what I know. There was never a man in the alley trying to get me. Now, you would think if the law of attraction was really true, there would have been a man back there, but there wasn't. I had all those so called negative fears, and I had all those so called negative thoughts, and I didn't manifest a thing. So, if the law of attraction really is true in that way, then how come I didn't manifest anything? And that's just one example of millions. How many times have you worried about something and it never happened? Those were so-called negative thoughts and negative feelings according to the law of attraction, but it never happened, did it? So when I've had these clients that have come in and said to me, it's not working, I've tried so hard and I'm trying so hard, and what they say is, what's wrong with me? How come I can't manifest that? And my response to that is not to tell them how to think, but over time, not the first time they say that, but over time, I begin to develop enough rapport to be able to ask the question, what if it's not you? What if it's the law of attraction? What if you've been taught to believe is false? So what's happened is this person's mind has been poisoned with the toxicity of a teaching that is spiritually abusive, that tells them, don't reach into your soul to find out who you are and what you're really feeling and thinking. No, don't do that. Try to manifest things in the external world that are going to make you happy. Stay out here in the external world with your inner thoughts and feelings. Don't go into your inner being, your being, which is what this show is all about. Don't go there. Don't go there. Stay outside and manifest things that are outside. So if I go there and find fear, then I sit with that fear and ask it, what is it trying to tell me? If I sit with my anger and I say, what are you trying to tell me? Then I'm not having toxic positivity. Then I'm in the Siji. I'm in the middle. I'm going in me to find me. I'm not listening to some external teaching that tells me how to think and how to feel so that I can be happy in the world or manifest a new car or a new relationship or $1 million or whatever it is I'm trying to manifest. That's external. Now, here's what I'm not saying. I want to be clear about this. I'm not saying that we should not have a happy life in the external world. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that toxic positivity robs us of our ability to go inside and find out what's really going on in there. And from there, then I can work toward what it is that I want in the world. And maybe I'll get it. A lot of times when we put a lot of work into something, we actually get it. Sometimes we don't. And that doesn't mean that we have been thinking negative thoughts and not, having positive thoughts all the time. It doesn't mean that. It means that life is life. And life has a life of its own, and we cannot control it. We can look inside and find out who we are and try to manifest that. We can manifest the self with a capital S. We can definitely do that. And so if the law of attraction means that I'm attracted to and by all of those things that are going to help me grow into myself with a capital S, then yes, that would be a good definition of the law of attraction. But if the law of attraction is a law that says, a universal law that says, if I always think negative thoughts, or not always think negative thoughts, if I always think positive thoughts, I'm going to get positive things. And if I even have one negative thought, oh my gosh, I might attract a negative thing. I've even heard it just recently. Watch your thoughts, they said. Watch your thoughts. Every thought you think manifests something in the world. How toxic does that get? That's totally toxic positivity. Do we need to pay attention to our thoughts? Yes. But that means I'm going to go in here and find out what I'm thinking. And then I might be able to find a feeling or a belief attached to that the belief might not be accurate at all. That's what cognitive therapy is all about. Finding out what's really true and juxtaposing that against what I believe that's not necessarily true. So when we talk about that, that's confronting ourselves with beliefs that we've picked up from other people in the external world that may or may not be true for us at all. Transpersonal therapy would be, I'm finding myself. And that person believes from an internal authority rather than an external authority. Now, does that mean I get to go around breaking all the rules out? No, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is I believe me. And I don't know if I believe what you're saying or not, but I'm going to go in here and find out whether or not I really believe what you're saying. And sometimes that's with critical thinking. Sometimes that's paying attention to my intuition, my discernment. So let me define those terms. Intuition is I know something without knowing how I know it. I just know it. There were a lot of people who have this, something happens that they knew was going to happen, or they get a feeling about somebody that turns out to be completely accurate, but they don't know how they know that. They just do. Discernment, on the other hand, is a little bit different because discernment doesn't know just because it knows. Discernment knows is because there's evidence. Discernment says, I'm watching what you're doing while simultaneously paying attention to how I feel about what you're doing. I'm not just watching you and pretending I don't feel. So many times when we're attracted to someone, for example, we go, oh, they're just such a great person. I'm falling in love with them. And anything they present is just great and wonderful. So that's all I need to know. That's a fantasy. Rather, if I'm watching what you're doing and I'm also responding to that with, oh, that makes me feel X, or that makes me feel Y. That's discernment. So an example I give in one of my books is, suppose you go out with Joe Mo and Joe Mo starts flirting with the waitress, right? You're watching this. Now, what you could do in a fantasy idea of Joe is to say, oh, isn't that cute? He's flirting with the waitress. Isn't that cute? But if you're looking inside your feelings where you are being, then you might say, you know what? I'm not feeling good about this. If he's going to flirt with somebody right in front of me on our first or second date, what is that going to look like later? I don't feel good about this. And that might be a red flag, or at least a yellow one. So paying attention to discernment and intuition is very, very helpful. Toxic positivity doesn't make any room for that. Toxic positivity, and the way the law of attraction is used, is I can't go there. I'm busy trying to suppress or repress my thoughts that are so-called negative, and I'm trying to always think positive, and then I'm going to get what I want. I'm going to manifest what I want. So I'm going to manipulate the universe into giving me what I want by always thinking positive. No, that's toxic. So today we've talked about the law of attraction as toxic positivity. Now, if you want to know more about that, you can certainly look at my book. It's on Andrea Matthews. Matthews is spelled with one T, not two. And that book is on my website, which is andreamatthews.com. And you can purchase it there. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can certainly go there. But you might just want to pause and think about what I've said today. And that would be, I might be a way of thinking about this that kind of helps you process it. And certainly, if you have questions that you want to contact me about, you certainly can do that. I'm Andrea at andreamatthews.com. Have a good day.